Welcome to the Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast, where we explore the local arts culture and community in the Lehigh Valley.
We'll be doing this through conversations with individual artists, administrators, musicians, poets, actors, and arts and cultural organizations. We'll discuss all types of mediums with the goal of enriching local arts culture.
Welcome back to Season 5 of the Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast. My name is Ben, and this week I will be interviewing Dear Misty, a 5-piece dream pop band. After decades of genre-spanning songcraft, Eric Kuntz takes up a palette of atmospheric dream pop and shoegaze, bringing to it his characteristic focus on structure, melody, and lyricism. To expand the ideas and bring them to life, he assembled a band of brothers with childhood friend Chris Dean on lead guitar, longtime bandmate Wes Checkeye on drums, and friends Nate Shorb on bass and Doug Liedig on synthesizers. Their debut collection of songs wrestles with the tension between nostalgia and childhood trauma, and owning one's place in the present moments of adulthood.
Well, I am sitting right now with all 5 members of Dear Misty. Can I have you guys introduce yourselves one by one?
My name is Wes Checkeye.
And I am Nate Shorb.
I'm Eric Kuntz.
My name is Doug Liedig.
And I'm Christopher Dean.
Welcome, guys. We have been talking about having you guys come in for a while, and I am very excited that it's finally happening.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. For the first time that your band's name came up was when we recorded with Danny Finocio. He was kind of in the midst of designing some stuff for you guys. And then after that episode came out, you guys very, very kindly sent us a postcard thanking us for the mention in the episode, which I still have framed over by my desk.
Wonderful. That's delightful to hear.
And then on that episode, we also promoted the Rose Garden show, which Danny designed the poster for. And it was around that time that you guys released the cassette, right? Yeah. So outside of Danny, I've had your name pop up from seemingly every musician in the Valley that I happen to talk to. And it's been really cool to hear the influence that you guys have had with such currently a small but soon to be budding release catalog. So I would love to hear from you guys about what is Dear Misty and how did you guys get started?
Wes, Nate, and I were in a band called Dr. Ransom from about 2015 until 2017. The band was kind of fading out, and I had been talking with Chris about the possibility of starting a project. And so we started getting together and just kind of fleshing out what it would look like. Nate and Wes got wind of it, and they were like, okay, we're in. And then within a few weeks after that, I was at a party, and then I said, hey, do you want to be in a band? And that's kind of how it all got started.
That must have been awkward because Dan was currently playing synth for the band, the guy who was hosting the party.
Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh. That was a very short leg that he was a part of the band. But then he had said that he could no longer do it. And then Doug showed up and I was like, oh, wow. And so we got to talking about it and he came and jammed with us for a little bit. And then the rest was history.
Now, you are the main lyricist, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Very cool. I heard a bit about your inspiration from bands on Tooth and Nail.
Oh,
and
yeah.
How that has kind of continued to crack through and show inspiration throughout time.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about that. I'm a big Tooth and Nail fan myself.
Okay.
I was a frequent attender of Purple Door when it was still
my
around.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Purple Door was awesome.
But yeah, I'd love to hear about Tooth and Nail.
Well, I mean, Chris and I have known each other since birth. His parents got my parents together. And so we kind of grew up, in the wake of like Tooth and Nail as it was all just kind of happening. And so I remember we had picked up a lot of those early Tooth and Nail records. But one in particular, which is still my favorite band, Starflower 59, they have remained tried and true, and they're still my favorite band. But yeah, I mean, Chris and I were heavy, and I know the other guys were too, and they grew up with very similar backgrounds. But growing up in a very conservative home, there wasn't a whole lot of music that was acceptable, and so it kind of had to be like a Christian thing. And so Starflower was one of those bands that just really resonated with me and was mine. But that kind of kickstarted all of that.
I'd love to hear about some of the influences that the rest of the band members brought to the table.
I think staying on the tooth and nail side of things, I think that gives us some common vocabulary when it comes to influences, because I grew up with that as well. So bands like Plank Eye and MXPX, the punk side of things, the ska side of things, and then some of the alternative rock side of things as well. There's some common vocabulary when we go back to those references, the references that were really important to us in our teenage years and young adult years, which is, I think, important for the way that we work together.
For those listening, quick, Tooth and Nail was, and I believe they're still around, still actively putting stuff out, are a largely Christian punk metal, you name it, kind of catch-all of those outside of the traditional Christian contemporary music bubble. And they would find these acts, scoop them up, and push them out. So anyways, back to you guys.
I know for me, what Purple Door did we go to, Eric? Was it like 2001? I'm trying to remember.
It was early. It was in the early 2000s. I can't recall. I mean, it was one of them. I don't know if you and I went together. I know I went to one of them. But I think I was in college at that point.
I remember, like, for me, I was into the solid state, so a little bit more of the heavy stuff. I remember watching Living Sacrifice at one of these, and just like one of the bands that I think it was the Songs from the Penalty Box, like one of those variety pack, tooth and nail samplers. There was a band named Strong Arm, which had kind of a post-hardcore sound with just these amazing guitars that were kind of just floating above everything else. And after that, kind of like Further Seems Forever. So a lot of kind of like some of the lead parts that I will play harken back to some of those, a little bit. You can definitely hear some Further Seems Forever in there and that style. How about you, Doug? What are some of your influences?
I'll set you up, Doug.
Okay.
I think when it comes to the music that we listen to and that influences us, it's a really wide array of music. We are a really eclectic group, and it's all over the place. So sometimes it's jazz, sometimes it's obscure ambient stuff, it's Icelandic stuff, it's all over the map. And so I think what's interesting is when we find those things that we have in common. It's interesting to see the push and pull of the variety of things that where we have our own sort of influences, each one of us, but then the center of the Venn diagram where we kind of come together and we're speaking the same language and working together on the same page. Doug likes some of the most experimental and wacky stuff, I think.
Yes, I think, well, in regards to my influences playing the synth in the band, I would like to go on the record and say that the keyboard is the least proficient instrument for me. So when Eric asked me to play, my then fiance, now wife, said it would be hot if I joined the band. So obviously,
your message is responsible for your marriage.
well, I wouldn't say that much, but if it helps the bit, yes. But I'd say as far as like playing the synthesizer, I can think back on one of the first times I heard Brand New Colony by Postal Service. And I remember having that thought process or that realization or discovery that that sort of thing exists, that sort of music exists, and you can make that. And then I think further along, Kid A comes to mind. but also just gospel music. I love gospel music. I don't know how they play that. It doesn't matter how many YouTube videos I watch. I can't do the passing chords that they do in gospel music. But yeah, I'd say that's a good little taste.
Kind of pulling that together outside of just hearing the influence that these bands and these musicians have had on the music itself. You guys also have a playlist on Spotify, the 5 for 5, the Dear Listy playlist. What how did that come about, and how did you guys decide to put that together?
We'll end up passing that back to Nathan, because Dear Listy is really that's Nathan's love. But one thing I love about Dear Misty is, like, if we individually were asked probably what kind of band we would play in, my guess is maybe not, with the exception of maybe Eric, I don't know that we would actually land right on Dear Misty, which is actually, I love about it, because our influences are varied among the group, but we've come together kind of in this mutual, like, love of friendship and music, you know? And I think that's what's really cool. Like Doug, I'm a guitarist by I'm a far more proficient guitarist than I am a drummer. You know, but again, love playing in the band, you know, and if I had my way, I'd be playing like some ambient guitar, you know, instrumental stuff somewhere. But Dear Listy, it was I feel like a good explanation of some of our varied interests.
Yeah, Dear Listy, I don't know how I came up with it. I just was looking to create some sort of content to put on Instagram, because we didn't have any releases to talk about or any shows to talk about. And so in that lull, I decided, you know what? I just want to hear 5 songs. Just pick 5 songs and threw that out to each member. But I did like how you got 5 very different selections of music, and I think that showed how diverse some of our influences are too. But it's always a fun experiment to force someone to choose 5 songs without a criteria. It's always interesting to make someone choose 5 songs without a given criteria, without a prompt, and just choose 5 random songs, and each member took it however they wanted to.
I found that a kind of a hard assignment. I like the boundaries of, you know, something to go on. Like, it's just like,
It's safer.
Well, a theme that seems very prevalent through the visuals, the videos that you guys have released, the lyrics, really everything, is the sense of nostalgia, and almost a brooding nostalgia, if I can go that far, or a melancholy nostalgia, somewhere kind of in the middle there. I'd love to hear about the sense of nostalgia as it relates to the whole band, because I feel like, for those who may be engaging with your content, a lot of it comes through the lyrics and the visuals, but you know, it applies to all of you. You're all releasing this, so I'd love to hear about nostalgia.
I mean, I'll speak for the band and what I see, especially. Eric obviously is, you know, the driving force, but you know, behind these lyrics and a lot of the core elements of these songs. But what's really neat to see is the interplay between, especially Eric and Chris, because they're such lifelong friends. But then really all of us have kind of intermixed pretty deep roots. So even Eric's lyrics, as he talks about these, you know, kind of searching and pining for, you know, these nostalgic feelings and some unknown territory. I feel like it's pretty neat to see interplay between these band members who all have deep roots. You know, like Nate and I played in bands in high school together. Doug was going to the same shows that our bands were playing in, and likewise with Eric. You know, there was a lot of intermixing over, you know, the last 20 some odd years of our lives. So it's been fun to see that kind of start to come out in the music.
And we all have kind of similar backgrounds as well, you know, and we were all pretty much born around the same time as well. So there's a lot of overlap. And when you grow up in the Lehigh Valley, you know, you kind of go on vacation in the same places. and have a lot of the same experiences. So I know, at least from that vantage point, there's a lot of camaraderie, and we're able to relate on those levels. But yeah, I mean, this is it's a very cathartic record for me. Just really working through some childhood trauma, things that I should really be talking to a therapist about. But it's been a good vehicle to wrestle through and work through those things, and singing them practice after practice and singing them show after show. It really helps, and not just on a personal level, but like hearing how other people relate to them as well has been really neat to see.
Kind of like Lake Wallenpaupack, that was
Chris can never say that name right, so
I have a hard time with it.
He has a real hard time with it.
I'm pretty sure it was okay though, that time.
So congrats.
Way to go, Chris.
You saw how I like kind of just was gingerly stepped into that word.
Over there.
But that, I remember going to your parents' lake house, and experiencing that, and actually going on the boat with you, right? Which is the boat, your dad's boat, Dear Misty, is why the band's name is Dear Misty. Yeah. So, obviously, yes, there is a very dark tone and brooding, as you said, but, as Eric's best friend during that time, I saw it through rose-colored glasses in many different ways. So, yeah, I don't know.
I think that sense of nostalgia is something that always resonates with me, and like that's probably the common thread in all of the music I listen to, or sort of that melancholy sort of wistfulness, even if it's ambient music that I like, the music that evokes memories and that speak to that sort of feeling of wistfulness is something that always resonates with me. So it's something that I resonate with in the band, even if I don't share Eric's experiences in particular.
Well, I think there is, you see in everywhere right now, whether it's like Stranger Things, or there's just this heavy resurgence of nostalgia in terms of just, people are trying to reproduce recordings in a way that's very similar to the sound profiles of the 80s. And, I think in our recording of this album, and even just the tone, like the synth tones that are used and everything like that, it's intentionally trying to harken back to those times.
Absolutely. And, it's for me as, a songwriter, it's always, it's not to do something really complicated or exciting because it's difficult. It's more just about creating an atmosphere and creating a mood. And those are the moods that I want to feel, growing up here in the Lehigh Valley, I have very fond memories of, car rides at night, listening to WFMZ, and, just like soft rock, whatever you can imagine, Dolly Parton or Dreamweaver. I mean, those songs, really, they have a very special sound. There's something very unique about the sound that they created, and those sound profiles are very nostalgic for me. So just wanting to try and just, say, I respect this, and, I want to emulate that.
Tell me a little bit about how the process of creating a song comes about for you guys. Does it start with melody? Does it start with lyrics? Does it depend on the song? How does that work?
That's a great question. When we first started this project, I had a very hard time letting go of control. So I would record everything at home, like every instrument, and the vocals and the lyrics. And when I would present the song to a band, it was pretty much a complete piece of music. But I've been working really hard to relinquish some of that. And now that we're working on new stuff, it's more about like, okay, like, Chris, I really like that riff that you just played again. And then we all kind of, bounce ideas off of one another, and we just start, riffing. And songs have been coming out of that. And it's been unique to me because I'm so used to just doing it all myself.
Eric comes with just a good framework, right? So almost a demo, right? So like what you would do before when you recorded the songs by yourself, you will come with a pretty complete demo, and then he presents it to us, and then we'll kind of just jump into it and contribute kind of our own, spin on each of these things, and the song will evolve in many different ways and, resemble all of our input at that point. Like when you hear what we play live versus kind of what the initial idea was, it definitely takes on a life of its own.
And also, I mean, just for a reminder here, the band was kind of formed out of COVID. So Eric had some time on his hands to be recording and writing, and really thinking through these ideas, which was awesome. And honestly, for 5 incredibly busy people, business owners, family, extracurriculars, the whole thing, to be in a band is not always the easiest thing, and to be consistent. So it really was a lifesaver for the starting and keeping of this band, for Eric to be able to come with such complete thoughts prior, and us to be able to kind of just hit the ground running with it. I think really helped kickstart this band and keep it going. So
that's
thanks,
true.
Eric.
Well, you're welcome. But yeah, I mean, like, well, wait a minute, because Goth, our first show was at Goth Prom, with We're From Antarctica, Service Dog, which is now Felt Right, and I think that was before COVID. That wasn't before COVID.
That was after.
That was after COVID.
But it is a testament to just the fact that like we started playing about a year before COVID, and we were just practicing. We didn't, in that Goth Prom was the first show that we had played.
What a show.
But it was nearly 2 years of just practicing in a Vogue Solar's basement. Just showing up it was Thursdays at that point when we practiced.
That's right.
And how, just 2 years. But I mean, the beautiful thing about it is, yes, the art is amazing. The songs, we're very happy with how this album has turned out. But like, I think the friendships that have been formed over the last 6-7 years are, I really benefit from it. So
practicing for that long and really having that kind of discernible timeline of 2 years. At what point did you guys go from we're a group of musicians practicing together to like, oh, this is really a thing? Was it that way from the beginning, or did it really start to shape together and snap into place further along that time?
That's a good question. I mean, pretty much out of the gate, like that was my goal, was for this to be a, as much as it could be a hardworking band. I mean, we're all married with kids, so we all have careers, and that those things certainly take precedent. But that was always the goal. So I didn't intend for it to take that long before our first show, but COVID certainly splintered and slowed that process down. But one of my good friends, Mark Viola, he was in a band called June State Residential here in the Valley, and they were, in my opinion, like the best emo band in the Valley. But I remember back then they practiced probably for about a year before they played their first show, because they said we want our first show to be something worth listening to, and that was always very inspirational to me. So I wanted to kind of emulate that a little bit and harness that energy. And actually, Mark is in a new band now called Joy Overdrive, and they're going to be playing our record release show.
No, I think it's true that right from the start, we knew that whatever we wanted to do it well. And so when we were going to be playing shows, we wanted to make sure it was worth it, and we wanted to have a good polished live show. And when we were getting ready to record the album, we knew we wanted to record it and do it well and do it justice, do these songs justice. But this entire band has been built on 2 hour per week increments. Like we've already said, we're busy dads, we're busy guys, and so we were able to carve out 2 hours a week, but that's what we worked with. And so even when we were recording, that whole recording process was 2 hours per week, and we would go into the studio and do another 2 hour chunk and go back the next week and another 2 hour chunk. And it was slow. It was really slow going. But that's just the way that we had to do it by nature of our lives and our priorities. But we're glad that we're glad with what has come of it, all the same.
Yeah, it's not like, past bands that we've all been in where like you could just take a month off or something and just, bang out a record. Like those days are long behind us. I wish we could do stuff like that now. But yeah, it's not possible.
Yeah, that's something that I had down in my notes, is being multi-hyphenate individuals with priorities above being musicians, time management. I mean, I'm not a musician myself per se, but I certainly understand having a child and a wife and, a business and a full-time job and all of these other things that make it really difficult to even do something as simple as record this podcast on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear about time management skills and kind of how each of you are able to work around that.
Well, we have to give credit to our wives and our families who let us do this as consistently as we do.
Absolutely.
The fact that the 5 of us are able to commit to that, once a week slot and stay pretty consistent with it. That's the only trick we've got. I'm not sure we're practicing a whole lot outside of that. We're working on things as best we can when we can, but as far as getting together, it's that 2 hour slot and keeping it consistent.
Well, I will give a specific thank you for you guys making it out, not for a 2 hour slot on a Wednesday. We are recording at the studio on a Monday.
That's right. That's right.
And we are recording on a Monday, but let's let the record say that Christine will not be at practice on Wednesday because
You're bringing up a point of contention here. Our text thread got a little hot a few days ago when I said only one night. The podcast is the night. But it's okay. Hey, the following Wednesday, we'll be there.
But yeah, I've been thinking about that timeline a lot. It's easy to look at other bands and sort of compare yourself and maybe even get a little jealous, right?
Mm.
Like this new band, Lunar Pools, that we've been following and supporting.
They're so good.
They're good. They're great. They just formed. They've recorded, and they're about to put it out tonight. Actually, I think when we're recording this, the album's coming out tonight. And that's really impressive that they are already recording and releasing an album, and we're still waiting another month for our album to come out. But more power to them. We're just at different life stages, or thinking of Felt Right, right? Felt Right. They've changed their band name. They've had kids. They've recorded an album, put it out, and gone on hiatus all in the time that we've been recording an album. But
It's the crock pot method.
It's the crockpot.
Low and slow.
Low and slow.
Slow and steady.
Slow and steady wins the race, guys.
That's right.
Come on.
Page of the line.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we're actually that great at time management. I think that we are just committed to the cause. And I think that's one thing that I've been really thankful for is like we've all been in a number of other bands over the years. And as most of us know, most of those bands unfortunately seem to dissipate. They disappear. They fade out, people start not showing or coming, and before you know it, it's just no longer happening. So because our friendships are strong, I think that it's continued to really be the catalyst to push things forward, which is awesome.
Well, that's the beauty of any, like, the foundational structure of a band is trust, right? So it's like knowing that even though life's crazy, even though we get 2 hours a week, and all the frustration that goes with trying to create something while dealing with all the other tensions is just like, the 4 other guys that are here, I deeply trust at the same time. So
Throughout that last little bit, you guys mentioned recording the album. And from what I've seen, you guys have recorded with Jason Reef over at Freestone Productions. Tell me a bit about the process of making this album, working on creating this record from the ground up.
Well, I met Jason in college, and I don't want to say when we graduated because we're old, but it was a long time ago, and we just remained friends over the years, close friends. And when it came time to doing a record, it just made sense to do it with him. Jason is local. It's not a far drive for any of us, and we trust him. This process was nothing short of exhausting. I'm so thankful that it's over. It was, a lot of late nights, a lot of strained conversations over, differences of opinions. Most of those were my fault. And, but I think ultimately, we got something that we're really proud of.
I would like the record to say, though, that I recorded all my parts in a weekend.
It was not fair. You should have had so much more time, like the rest of us.
No, just joking. But
I would like the record to show that I know now that I should understand before I step into the booth what is expected of me. I just had a totally different idea of what recording would look like, and I made myself look a fool in front of Jason Reef of Full Stone Studios. It was exhausting, though. It was. There would be times where I would play what was written, and then I would do a take, and I would improv, and then Jason would say, "Do that again," and I would just have to tell him I have no idea how to do that again. So it was fun. It was
2-hour chunks over 3 years. It was the least efficient. And but at the same time, I know for me, I really appreciate production. I've done a little bit myself, and working with Jason was a masterclass in just I think learning about production. And I knew a decent amount already, but to be able to glean just a lot of what he has learned and his ear and his instincts, it was really great to be able to work with Jason. And the fact that, being a good friend of Eric, again, he was basically the 6th member of Dear Misty for 3 years. So
I was going to say the same thing, that he became sort of the 6th member, and it helps that he's a friend. It helps that he's a dad. So he's coming from a similar perspective as the rest of us. And that's the only way that he was patient enough to go through that process with us. I don't think any other producer would have taken that long with a band.
Well, he was also getting paid for it.
Sure, he was getting paid for it. That helps. But he was patient, and he did a good job. So, but again, I think we took so long at it because we wanted to do it right, and we wanted to do it well, and we wanted to do it justice. And we were committed to that from the beginning. And that's part of the reason it took as long as it did.
I would frequently text message Jason, and I would start it off by saying, "You're going to hate me." And he would respond and he would say, "Uh-oh, now what?" Because there were so many edits that needed to happen. But yeah, it was a good experience.
We had a shared Dropbox file that, each version of the song would be listed. And I don't know, some of those songs had 7-8 different versions.
Yeah, they did easily. Yeah. There were many times where it felt like My Bloody Valentine's record, Loveless. I mean, I don't know how many years, Kevin Shields and the gang labored over that record, but it was a long time. I mean, there's a rumor that he spent an entire week on a tambourine part. I mean, like, I wouldn't say that I went to those extremes, but there were times where I'm sure the guys felt like I was that extreme.
A bit Stanley Kubrick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Production methods.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
See, but that's the crucible of good art,
Oh, yeah.
you know, and at times I do think we may have had too many cooks in the kitchen in terms of just, I don't know, you got to ship it eventually. And we did.
Well,
But-
that's an interesting point, Chris, because individually we all enjoy writing music. And that, I think, has been probably one of our greatest challenges, is that because Eric had such core ideas to these songs, each of us come from a pretty creative background, you know, as far as wanting to make music and writing songs, that I think at times that's probably, you know, some of the biggest hurdles we've had in staying together and or getting past a song and being happy with it, is like, man, if I had written this, I would have done it like this, or, well, I'd love to play this guitar part this way because, you know, that's how I would do it, you know? So it's a challenge, but a good one.
Yeah. As much as a good producer is bringing their own thoughts into it, a lot of times they also act as a mediator throughout the band and recording process. I'd love to hear a little bit about how Jason kind of helped mediate these discussions and bring that focus back to the core of what you're doing, instead of, you know, everybody coming with 5-6 different opinions.
I thought he did a really good job in that way. In that, I think you guys were really good friends. So he was a mediator and at times even like a translator, where like, you know, if there was an idea that was thrown around in the studio, you know, and, you know, a lot of times if somebody's adamant about an idea and somebody else doesn't want to receive it, he would, I think, speak to just the validity of it in a way that was less passionate, and it would kind of bring temperatures down. So I think, yeah, and just kind of even like speaking to the technical validity of, you know, a lot of this stuff, you know, he had an authority because of his schooling and everything like that as well. So I do think that he was a good central figure in just helping produce this album.
Yeah, there's a lot of musicians in the world, and of those, there's fewer that have recorded something. There's fewer that have recorded something in a studio, fewer that have mixed something and then mastered it for different release formats. It sounds like each of you have come from a very different place within that process. I'd love to hear a little bit about what you guys learned about the process of putting together packaging and getting ready to ship a record.
I guess I've become the de facto band manager, and that includes learning how to release a vinyl record. So I've learned everything from the very beginning to the very end of it, although we haven't seen the end of it yet. There's some delays at the pressing plant, but it's still going to get pressed. Don't worry, guys. One thing we learned is how long the songs can be to be put on a record, and we didn't learn that soon enough. So there's actually 2 songs floating out there that didn't make it onto the vinyl record. Yeah. So they're going to get their own special release at some point. But we learned about that, and the hard way. And I don't know what else I've learned.
21 minutes on a 33 is not easy to fall within.
Yeah, 21 minutes on a 33. Yeah, I think that's about right. I'm impressed you know that. And I think we pushed it. I think there's 24 minutes on a side maybe. And we wanted even more than that. So yeah, it's we have long songs.
I mean, it's just there's been a steep learning curve throughout this entire process. This is the first time as a songwriter that I've put out, you know, with my band, you know, this very personal body of work. You know, I've been in previous bands where we put out EPs and, you know, things like that, but never really a full length. And at least that I played such a, you know, big role in the writing process. And so this was a very much so a passion project for me, and a very personal one. There is that fear of like, okay, well, the files sound great. It sounds great on the CD, but what's it going to sound like once it's pressed on vinyl? I mean, I've over the years, I've heard a lot of local bands that it sounds great when you stream it, and then you put the record on and something went wrong there. There's a whole lot of static, it doesn't resonate the same.
Yeah.
And so there's that fear of what that's going to sound like. But, there's so much between the artwork and contacting these different vinyl pressing plants and CD pressing plants, and it was a big undertaking for Nate. He did the bulk of that, but even just working with oh my gosh, Deming. What is Deming's last name? Thank you. What's that? Say it again. Yeah, working with Deming Harem. But it was a lot of back and forth communication of really trying to conceptualize the idea, it was exhausting, at times for me because I was struggling to communicate exactly what it was that I wanted, and so I mean that's definitely something that I learned. Like you need to have this stuff figured out, like almost like to the T. Like Doug was saying, wishing that he had come into some of those recording sessions, having a better idea of what it was that he wanted to do, that would have made things move a lot smoother. But it's all a learning curve, I'm hopeful for LP2, and it'll certainly be better the second time around, I hope.
So I guess I can say that the album was mastered by Ryan Schwab, who's based in Philadelphia. He's done a lot of influential indie rock bands that are coming out of that scene in Philly, and he's been nominated for Grammys in the past. So really excited to work with him. He made the record sound fantastic. And then it was going through the process of deciding where to have it pressed that I contacted Well Made Music in Virginia about cutting the lacquers for the record. And they're the ones that put me in touch with Hellbender Vinyl, which is out in Pittsburgh, and they're opening another one in Philadelphia. So it's fun that our record's going to be pressed in Pennsylvania. It's relatively local, at least as far as pressing records go. So that's pretty exciting. And so they're in the process of doing that now as we speak, and we'll get it by the end of the month.
That's awesome. And is that an official pressing, or is it a cut of, like, is it a what do you call it? A lathe cut?
It's an official press.
It is an official pressing.
It's actually
Very
being
cool.
pressed, and we got a run of 100 records that are going to be pressed.
That's very exciting. Now, to help get this whole thing made, you guys launched a campaign. I'd love to hear about that process. I know that is stressful, especially because you guys did an all or nothing, right? Tell me about that and the kind of nail-biting final hours of the campaign.
We want to talk about.
Well, I just remember, so we got together, I think it was like at a Panera or something like that. And we just kind of conceptualized what we wanted to do. We wanted to make a few different videos. So I just remember meeting Nate at the Steel Stacks. And I don't know. I just, it's amazing that we were even able to pull something like that off. When we started it, I just didn't think anything was going to come to fruition, but
it's vulnerable enough to put your art out into the world, to release an album in general. Like, you've got to put yourself out there, but to put yourself out there to ask for money to do it is 10 times more vulnerable. Yeah. And so it just felt so audacious. And then especially with the stuff going on around the world, you're like, here we are asking for money to release a record. Like, does this even matter in the grand scheme of things? Like, who are we to be asking for this? It was hard to do. But we believed that we had enough friends and family around us and enough support from the local scene that we thought that it was worth a shot. And so we went for it. It was hard to pull together. It was the Kickstarter campaign is it's a big undertaking to put all of that together, all the rewards. Yeah. We haven't gotten to the stage of actually shipping out rewards and things like that yet, but that's coming. And and Doug's going to be roasting some specialty coffee for some rewards. So we're excited about that. Another day, another blend. Mm-hmm. Based off the song Another Day, that's right. And so the Kickstarter campaign is continued. It's not done until all those rewards gets shipped out.
Mm.
I would like the record to show that I will not be roasting the coffee, but I will be providing the packaging. The roasting, I guess, I don't know if I can even take credit for it. I'm roasting all of the coffee beans myself.
Doug works for Backyard Beans in Lansdale. Is a core team member down there.
Are we allowed to say that?
Oh, are we allowed to say that
I think
the Another Day blend is Backyard Beans? Should I
cut that.
Oh, it does? Okay. Well, then we're definitely allowed to say it.
All right. Well, I'll see.
Bobby, Backyard, we'd like to apologize right now.
I'll check with Bobby when he gets back from vacation.
Sorry, Bobby.
Sorry, Matt.
Coffee is a reward.
But yes, a special roast will be going out Another Day, named after the song. And it's going to be tasty.
But the campaign was another brainchild of Nate Shorb. He's a cerebral powerhouse. That's what I call him. So it was.
You've said that before?
Another Day.
I tell him that every time.
Okay.
Every day. Every time I see him.
But
But
throughout this conversation so far, you've talked about recording, releasing, and the importance of practicing so that your first show goes great. Not every band both tours and records. Some just record, some just tour. It takes a lot to do all of it. So I'd love to hear a bit about the live experience for you guys and your passion and drive to not only record, but also play live.
Doug loves to play live, so I think he should actually go first.
Yes, I would like the record to show that I really enjoy going out on stage and definitely being able to hear what I'm playing for people that I'm sorry.
I was just kidding. Doug, I was hoping that maybe you would I was hoping maybe you'd talk a little about how playing out is hard for you because it's not your favorite.
Yeah, I think at least for the first couple of shows, I would experience a lot of anxiety, especially after experiencing not being able to hear what I'm playing and having to trust that I remembered the notes and the right patches. That really took away from being able to enjoy it. I personally, like I had shared before, the keyboard, I'm not very proficient at it. I played guitar since I was in 3rd grade, and the last band I was in, when we would play, we would just face each other and we wouldn't have to look at anybody. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of jitters. I remember always just wanting to go up and just do it so I don't have to be nervous anymore. But I do know that when I am up there and I take the chance to look at everybody and see everyone just in it, I think that might be like the best part, just kind of that realizing that I'm a part of this. Actually, I'll try to take a selfie during a part of a song that I'm not playing. Or take a picture of the band, and it's something. I think my attitude has gotten better, but it does take a lot, especially being introverted by nature.
Maybe I'm speaking a little for everyone here, but sometimes I feel like playing live can be a little secondary. A lot of artists struggle with this, like the idea of we make art generally speaking for ourselves because it's something that we want to do, we want to create, we want to be making music with each other. And then there's this nagging cloud above you that knows, hey, I have to put this out. Like I want other people to hear this, even though I really don't want other people to hear this or see this, because we also know that shared experience is really incredible and that we've spent our lives going to see bands play and to, you know, see art in the world and have been shaped by it, you know, so we know that we need to take part of that. But yeah, sometimes it feels, you know, like somewhat secondary.
I know for, yeah, I mean, how many shows did we play last year? Just off the top of your head, guys, what do you think?
4, 5, somewhere there.
So we don't play super often.
Yeah.
But I do think it is special in that the members here in the communities we're a part of and the people we live life alongside, you know, when we do play a show and those people come out to see us, it is deeply meaningful to see the people that support us and like are just cheering us on to come out. Like, and it's interesting in that many of these guys kind of have been in different circles from what I've been in. So to just see the people that love them and then, you know, the people that have come alongside me. So like all of our different, you know, circles of influence coming together to kind of support us is really cool. I know Doug is very, you know, he has a little anxiety when playing live, but I'll tell you right now, in terms of just like a live performance, the difference between like just what we record and a live performance, it's this guy right here. We are incredibly awkward, like in terms of the way we communicate to people between songs. So we just rely heavily on this guy's synth. So he creates this beautiful atmosphere, like when we start playing. And, you know, this is something that's different from like the rest of the album. We rely so heavily on the synth between songs to kind of create that atmosphere. So I think that's a very special differentiator from what is on our recording.
And also, I mean, since, you know, we first started playing, I mean, we've gotten a lot better at making sure that Doug is able to hear himself. You know, we've worked, at least, you know, I think we've worked hard, you know, so that we have, you know, adequate, you know, ways for him to hear what he's playing and for the audience to hear that as well.
But actually, I'd like to hear a little bit about that technical process, because I think, you know, when we have people tune into these episodes, we do have some fans, but so many of these people are artists in the medium of what they're listening to. So, you know, you think about this answer from the perspective of other bands who may be facing similar challenges. How could they make it through the technical gremlins that show up during the live experience?
Having a good relationship with whoever is running sound is important. Being able to communicate. I think if you could have your own sound person and your own sound equipment, that would be even better because you would have full control over that. I think being honest with the sound engineer and telling him what you need to hear. I think sometimes just the shape of where you're playing makes it very difficult to be able to get a good mix. And times like that, you just close your eyes. That's all I can think of. Just the sound guy is like your best friend, and just, you know.
Yeah, I think you know, coming prepared is really your best friend. You know, making sure that you have your own power strip and, you know, your own ways of powering all of your stuff. And, you know, testing everything out, you know, before the show, making sure all your pedals, you know, have, you know, adequate power source. And, you know, that way you're not left out to dry. Oh my gosh. When we played the Bethlehem Public Library show, we played 11 Fest, and I could not find an outlet for my pedal board. And I'm frantically, you know, trying to find this, and everyone else is set up. And I couldn't find the sound guy, and there was no one to help me. And so I was walking around in circles, panicking, because, you know, we needed to be playing. We had a very, you know, short time slot, you know, and it was certainly for a good cause, but like that was probably the most stressed out at a show I've ever been. That was rough.
Having experience in the video world, I've gotten used to any time I'm out and I come across a use case for any video adapter, I buy it and I put it in my bag, and it stays there for the next inevitable time that I will need it.
It really is just redundancy.
Yeah.
Just for any scenario.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is there will be scenarios.
There absolutely will be.
And I honestly feel like, in terms of just the first show we played at, the Goth Prom, I feel like was kind of like the top of it. Like, it was by far the best show experience that I feel that we've had, in terms of just like sound and everything like that. But, you know, it can get rough. Yeah. If you don't have a sound person, and you have to be an advocate for yourself as well. It's just like, you know, when you're playing with 3 or 4 other bands, there's just so many other different people that are concerned with other things. So you have to kind of make sure you're communicating on the front end.
And I think also giving into the live experience of knowing things are going to be a little imperfect, not necessarily with your playing, although that will happen too. But I think for everybody who cares about making sure a band sounds great, when you get into playing live more and more, you realize that there's just going to be a lot of times where it is not going to sound how you want it to sound. And that's okay, you know, and to be able to kind of still experience it in a positive way and not be frustrated with that.
Yeah.
But kind of giving into some of that imperfection and having fun, you know, because I think you can lose a lot in, you know, getting lost in those kind of perfect details.
And 9 times out of 10, like the audience is not having the same experience that you are. You know, they're not hearing all of those little imperfections that you might be hearing. And also just remembering, you know, how it sounds on your friend's iPhone is not exactly how it sounded in person. So you can't really go off of that.
Is there a general consensus amongst the band for not the bad side, but the good side, the losing yourself in the live experience? You know, everybody's really enjoying themselves. What's a highlight from the live experience for you guys?
There's always a point in the show. It's usually like 2 or 3 songs in where I feel like I'm able to let go of all of the pre-show jitters, and I'm able to loosen up myself. And that's usually when I notice like I've allowed myself to be immersed in the experience, and I'm able to let go of all of that and just have a good time. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that, but usually like song 1, 2, and 3, I'm kind of stiff, you know, but then after that, I start to loosen up and move around a little bit and start to feel more comfortable. It always takes that, you know, little bit of, you know, I should really start doing like vocal warm-ups like before we go on. I should go outside and like, you know, sing.
Me.
Exactly. You know, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I should start doing that. I think that would be helpful.
What song do you like playing live most?
Another Day.
Me too. I just love the vibe. I think it just, when you look at like dream pop, it just has that kind of like
Lush.
Yeah, it's just,
Drenched
it's
in reverb.
lush.
Dreamy.
It's got that kind of 7th chord that's just kind of like
Drenched in reverb.
and it's a bit slower, so it's just something that you just settle into as a band. So that is one of my favorite songs to play live.
The live experience is the payoff for our friendship together. I mean, it's not the only payoff for our friendship together, but it's that time when we get to shine together. And one of my favorite shows was at Flying V because we were so close to one another. It's such a small space, and I was like playing right on top of Wes. And I just liked being close to you guys. And that's when I, you know, pat Doug on the back in the middle of a song, give him the encouragement he needs, you know, and
that's why at the Rose Garden, at the Rose Garden, it felt weird just because we had so much distance between each other.
Yeah,
right.
That was
Yeah,
strange.
It just felt like we were on like our own little islands.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, the Flying V was also Doug's favorite show because he was behind a corner.
Yeah, I don't think that I was visible, and that's the way it ought to be. Cut that. I think Chainbreaker might be my favorite. I think the times when like I was saying before, when I finally look up, and usually I'll look at Nate and he gives me a smile of encouragement that I need for my soul to keep going. And kind of, I mean, and what Eric said, that there's a moment where I kind of allow myself to just be a part of it, and I stop thinking about how it sounds, and I just am there. That's a nice feeling, I think.
And you'll know that happens because Doug will start dancing behind the synth.
Yes, I'll dance, or I'll throw a hymn in there in between songs.
Kind of coming off of the question of the physical release of the album. A lot of people wonder why bands in this day and age even bother with a physical release. What inspired you guys to want to go that route? And a big part of the campaign was getting the vinyl done. So can I hear a little bit about
We're all about the experience, and listening to a record is an experience. It's supposed to be an experience. When a band sits down, at least traditionally, when a band sits down, to write songs that are going to become a record, it's telling a story, right? And you want that. It's like, when you watch a movie, you don't skip around to your favorite parts. You start from the beginning and work your way to the end, because it's an experience. To skip around would be crazy. That would make no sense. Records are supposed to do the same thing. The band is telling a story, and they didn't just randomly choose the order of the songs. Like, it had a purpose. Yes, in High Fidelity, John Cusack talks about this idea of making the perfect mixtape and how to start it and where it goes from there and bring it down and then bring it back up. All that dynamics, great stuff, great movie. But there is a method to this, dynamically, as far as the story is concerned. And we want people to share that experience with us. That's why it was so important for us to put it on vinyl, because can you imagine? I mean, I know people who do and who are very skilled at it, but I don't like to skip around on a record. I start it and then, I flip it when it's time to flip it, and then it ends. And I get to experience the whole thing in one sitting. And I love that, my kids are able to, enter into that space with me and have that same experience. And it kind of makes me laugh, when they say, Papa, you need to flip the record. That the fact that they know that and, are able to, enter into that is really neat. So it really is about the experience, because it's unlike any other thing that we have in culture. So yeah.
Yeah, and in no fault to bands who choose to release singles as their,
absolutely.
as their medium, but a number of us certainly have grown over the years to love the experience that a vinyl record provides, and not just sonically, right? Like, we get to pick up this big thing, a piece of artwork. We see the band inside of it. We get to know a little more about them. The color of the record, the feel of it, taking it out of the package and putting it on, like the needle hitting. The whole thing is, to us, like a really fun, tangible experience in this digital age. Just feels great to not lose. So although maybe, you'll see how many of these records are sold. But for us, it was an important piece.
Well, I think even in line with what you were talking about, some bands release singles. I mean, in the metal and the hardcore scene, I mean, 7 inches are a huge thing. And I mean, even within bands that are interested in mostly releasing singles, even from just a budgetary standpoint, there's still that, I want this tangible thing.
It's funny, and it's funny how that's changed over time too. Like in the punk and hardcore scene, at least in the in the 80s and 90s, releasing a 7-inch was the cheapest way to get your music out there. So it wasn't so much about the format as it was just the cost, because most of those bands couldn't afford to do anything else. So nowadays, to get a 7-inch pressed, it's really expensive, you know? But to record something yourself and put it out on cassette, that's much cheaper. And so it's interesting how that has changed.
Yeah, when we put out the cassette, that was mostly just a fun little experiment to try, but it was cost effective to do that, and you saw why so many bands are releasing cassettes and why those are coming back around now, is because it is a lot more inexpensive to get your music out in a physical way. But I like to compare the record to, like, releasing a single is like running into somebody, like an acquaintance on the street or something like that. You might bump into them and have some small talk, and it might be an enjoyable exchange. But sitting down and actually listening to a record from beginning to end is like having a good cup of coffee with a friend. You get to know them, you get to know where they're coming from, you get to understand their world a little bit more. And for me, that's just a lot more meaningful of a way to listen to music. That's how I prefer to listen to my music.
I like that, Nate.
The writing is all from the same person, right? And from your perspective, it's a cohesive experience where each song kind of builds off of the next as well. So to be able to journey through that versus just, a single.
Movies came up quite a bit there. Cinema and kind of a cinematic air and the way that you guys handle themes reminds me a lot of films and the way that thematic material is explored in the world of cinema. I'd love to hear about those influences that you guys have coming into this record.
Yeah, just like what I was saying earlier, like for me, it's in our music, it's more about creating a mood than it is trying to impress someone with how how many runs I can do along the guitar neck, right? It's about an experience where I am inviting the listener in to feel some of the same things that I've been feeling, and that's why synthesizer for me was so vital to creating that, because without a synth, it's not as easy to do, and there's just something so euphoric about it that it just draws you in. I mean, for me, my favorite director is David Lynch, and he had Angelo Badalamenti compose the majority of his movies, and he used a lot of those late 70s to like mid 80s synthesizers, like the Juno, the Roland Juno 60, and the I'm blanking, but a lot of those early synths, and there was just something so special about them, and that's what made, for me at least, that's what was a big part of what made his movie so great, was the atmosphere that the music created, the tension and the release. And I mean, just like the theme of like Laura Palmer in Twin Peaks, like it's so interesting listening to it, and how many different movements. I mean, it starts off so dark, and then it slowly builds and it gets brighter, and then you think we're going to end on this high note, but then you're right back down to the darkness, and it's really, really unique. I've never heard any other composer do something quite like it, and that has been a huge influence in my writing for Dear Misty.
Yeah, I think we do all love film. I don't know how much it influences the band, but it is part of a common vocabulary that we have. And I do love how this album turned out very cinematic, and even the artwork that was created for it, I think, has a very cinematic feel. For me personally, definitely Wes Anderson and Michel Gondry are probably two of my favorite filmmakers. But again, two filmmakers that create their own worlds, and you step into them and sort of lose yourself in them for a while. Doug, what movies do you like?
I like lots of movies. I like David Fincher movies, especially there's a run I just really liked, his take on The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and I listened to Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's soundtrack a lot. like a lot, and it definitely was. I don't really know if I channeled any. I don't think I channeled any of that into this album, but yeah, it's just so good. Even when it is interesting. It's almost a given how the music will really set the tone for a scene. The Chair Company is a show on HBO by Tim Robinson, and it's this interesting take on what I think would be the conspiracy and almost thriller, not quite thriller, but the use of music in that show is, if you've seen any of his other work, it's very funny. But this very tense music is used for, there's a scene where I think he's just walking through the office and you hear this just super dark like sounds, and it makes you wonder, is something gonna pop out of nowhere or something? And it's interesting how important music plays in things.
Well, as a follow-up to that, you guys have talked about communicating amongst each other with that musical vocabulary. How have films allowed you to kind of expand what that musical vocabulary is and kind of connect in different ways thematically?
There's a lot of overlap in our taste in film, and sometimes that's the easiest way to communicate that. Like, remember, in this movie when this happened, and they were, using these instruments to create this tension, and I kind of want to do something like that here, in this song.
There's a lot of Nacho Libre jokes as well.
It's the best.
Especially going the Lynchian route in terms of soundscapes and those synths and pads. There is a bit more of this callback to ambient music, which is not something that a lot of bands will bring into the mix. And it seems as though, correct me if I'm wrong, that cinematic influence kind of across the board has allowed for a bit more of that ambient influence to seep into the music.
And we're really pulling for some more ambient, maybe in the coming years, in between songs, and some segues from song to song. It is something. It's a soundscape that we all share, I think, quite a bit. So it would be interesting to kind of dive into it more. Although I think at the core of the music we make, we love Eric's songwriting. So the words are helpful in that. But definitely.
I think it's cool, even looking at local collaborators, right? With the other side of the Wampumpak tape, having Alex Duquette, Sailcloth, put a largely ambient track in between these two songs. I mean, it's clear that that's a direction that you guys want to take the band. Mm-hmm. Taking this and what you guys have learned with putting this self-titled album together, where do you think you guys are going to go next?
I mean, ultimately, like, we're in debt, so we want to play a lot of shows so we can, get to pay off all the costs of making recording the record and getting all of these physical formats paid for. So that's going to be, as far as what's next, I think it's going to be just a lot of shows. I mean, we want to share this stuff with people, absolutely, but then there's also that financial burden, that we would love to, let go of. Absolutely.
Interestingly enough, though, Chainbreaker, which did not make it on the album, sadly, but we do play live from time to time, have started to, has a much more kind of celebratory feel to it. It's a little more upbeat. It definitely has kind of some of those themes in it, and I feel like some of the songs that we've been messing around with in the space have also had some of that, which is kind of interesting compared to being more slow, melancholy feelings. So it'll be kind of interesting to explore, because it feels like some of the new songs will go that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I spent a lot of time working through past trauma in the previous songs. So there's
It's time to celebrate.
there's some room for that. Yeah.
For those that are listening to this album and your music at large, what's something that you want people to kind of bring to the table when they're getting ready to listen to your music? What's something you want them to know or just come with open ears to?
I think a lot of the things that Eric talks about in this album are just will resonate deeply with, many people. So just, I think of Halloween and a lot of he's working through a lot of the feelings he felt, as a child. And I think many of us carry a lot of these feelings even into adulthood. So I just think there's some themes here that can be, that just deeply resonate with the human experience. So it's a very vulnerable album. And I think for so many who are, willing to listen to the lyrics, like they'll be able to deeply resonate with these things that Eric has talked about.
When we got the record pressed, they asked us if we wanted anything specific carved on the
dead wax.
the dead wax. I forget, Nate, you're gonna have to correct me. I forget exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of I asked if we could have carved in there, it's gonna be all right, kid. This album is really just a love letter to my inner child, and almost like me coming along my childhood self, putting my arm around that kid and telling him that it's going to be okay, and I'm here for you. So it's really just, if there's something that I want people to know, is that we need to be listening to our inner child, because our inner child is crying out in so many different ways. And when we ignore that, when we stuff that, it becomes problematic for us as adults, and it starts coming out in all these distorted ways, and it creates problems in our relationships. And I think we need to listen to that voice. We need to take care of that part of ourselves. And so that's what I would encourage people to be thinking about.
Music can tend to have a lot of healing properties and provide us with kind of soundtracks to our lives. I'd love to hear about music as it influenced you guys growing up. Like, what are some of your core memories that you have surrounding experiences with music?
In high school, Nate got a band by the name of Saxon Shore to come play locally. They were on tour. They were an instrumental 3-piece band. Matt Doty, Josh Chillman, yeah, Father John Misty. But he was also in this band, and I remember going. I had already seen bands and heard music, obviously, but it was one of those moments where only 30 people were in the room. This touring band came in and just expanded my mind. I was taken to a place that felt different than I'd ever felt, and wanted to keep feeling that way, and all these years later, like, that's the music that oftentimes resonates with me the most. But that was one of those moments. And I think from that point on, especially, being involved in like live music was so important to me. Even if I wasn't playing it all the time, but getting to hear it and being a part of it. Yeah.
No, my memory, the memory that comes to my mind too, is live music as well. When I was in middle school, my brother went off to college. My older brother went off to college, and so he started going to concerts but he was down in Lancaster. For some reason, he would drive all the way home and pick me up and then take me with him to go to these concerts. So I was just this little middle schooler, but he took me along with him. I'm not sure, looking back, I'm not sure why he did that, but I'm really glad that he did, because it was really influential in my life, going to concerts with a bunch of older kids and getting to experience a wide variety of live music there. That really had an influence on me. And then in high school, a couple years later, I was in my own ska band and trying to do the same thing of my own. So, yeah, all those bands that we talked about earlier, really influential in my high school years for sure.
Growing up right here in Bethlehem, the punk scene was very vibrant in the 90s. And I remember right in front of Hotel Bethlehem during Music Fest, that's where all the punks would hang out. And it was just a time to hang out with other punks, other kids who were, into the same stuff. And just growing up, going to shows at, Nancy Run, seeing bands like Digger, Weston, Punchline, Snowing. I mean, those were really, really good days. And just growing up with Andrew Poe, who started Home Base. It was just a good time to be alive. There was a community there that was very vibrant, and you didn't have to work hard to be in. It's just, if you were there, you were in, you were accepted, and you were embraced, and there was no judgment, which just made it really, really special. Chris and we used to go to shows at Egypt Fire Hall, and we saw so many bands come through there, like pre-Tooth and Nail. Like, we saw, the Huntingtons before they got signed to Tooth and Nail, Element 101 before they got signed to Tooth and Nail, Zao, the Juliana Theory. I mean, so many bands came through there before they quote unquote made it big. I mean, like Tooth and Nail is making it big, but it was great, and there was a fantastic community there as well with very similar experiences. But it's just so special to be a part of that now on a much different level as middle-aged guys. It's very unique in that we're a lot older than a lot of the bands that we play with, and yet again, there's no judgment. They're happy to see us. They're happy that we came. They're there. They're excited we're there. And they're friendly, and it's just it's a joy to be a part of this scene. With all of these awesome bands.
Yeah, I think going off of the live music and how that experiences there that influenced me. I remember seeing Down Berlin play for the first time, and it was probably it was the first band I heard play that genre of music, and I just remember, just being like, I don't know, I feel like I was just taken away to a different place and found a kind of music that I felt very much myself in, and I think going forward, just that atmosphere, but also I like sad music.
You got this.
There's a lot of sadness in my heart. Okay.
For our listeners, Down Berlin was Wes's old band. Wes played guitar. Kyle Page was on drums. Kyle Page is now a classical composer in Bethlehem. And Michael Scales was on bass. He is now playing piano for the New York City Ballet.
And that was actually the first time that I met Wes, was at that show. My band at the time, we were called El Toro. And we played a show with Wes's band. I forget who else was at that show. It might have been A Perfect Kiss and Bang Bang Beautiful.
Yeah, in terms of a significant core memory, 2001, Croc Rock, watching the Get Up Kids But it wasn't the Get Up Kids. It was the opener, Appleseed Cast.
Stop it. You saw Appleseed
They
Cast.
came out, and what's the name of that album?
Oh,
Low Level Owl,
Low Level Owl, Volume 1 and
Volume
2.
1. The opener. They came out.
Why didn't you invite me?
I didn't know you.
I went to that same tour. I saw them in Philly.
All I know is the mix was perfect. They played like it. The feeling you get when a band plays perfectly together and the mix is perfect and they are just beautifully ambient. And I just remember just feeling like the world was okay in that moment.
The way they had the drums mixed on that tour with the reverb and the delay, when he would do that drum roll and it would be like, and it would like, and then it would go throughout the entire venue. It was so
Yeah, I
epic.
just remember being deeply, there was an impression made.
Yeah. I mean, the Get Up Kids were great, but there was something.
The Get Up Kids afterwards, like honestly, I was there for the Get Up Kids, but it was nowhere as good as Appleseed Cast.
The Appleseed Cast blew them out of the water.
It's cool hearing you guys talk about all of this. For myself, I was at Purple Door for the last year that Under Oath were together before they broke up. Now back together, yada, yada, yada. But when I went to that, I was not a hardcore person at all. And my friends convinced me to go to their set by playing me a collection of their acoustic singles in the car. And they're like, we should go see this. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do it. But the energy in that room sold me. I was like, I've never seen anything like this before. And it blew my mind. It really did. And that, like, for myself now and my passion in going to live shows and especially supporting the local scene, so much of it was just birthed out of seeing a genre that I was not a big fan of and being blown away by the live experience. It was just incredible.
What was their big one? Was it They're Only Chasing Safety or something like that? Yeah.
But yeah, it was music. I mean, it impacts everybody's lives so deeply. Tell me a little bit about how you guys settled on Dream Pop. I mean, taking all of these different influences and then landing on Dream Pop.
Well, I mean Starflower 59 is one of my.
I was going to say 2 words, Jason Martin.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, that record, those first 3 records that he put out under the name of Starflower 59, like they just, I mean, it was like, time and place, right? Like I was like, 12, 13, 14 years old. I'm just discovering music. That's not my parents' music. And it's something that I was allowed to listen to because it was sold in Christian bookstores. But it wasn't like shoving, the Bible down your throat type music. Like it was just, he was writing songs from the heart and things that he was going through. And so I connected with that on a much deeper and personal level as a kid. And so it's just one of those things. It stuck like glue. I mean, next to like Nirvana and Weezer and, Fugazi. But there was just something really special that I connected with. So, wanting to use music as a vehicle to, work through just a lot of these, childhood traumas, it just kind of felt right to use something that I connected with at such an early age, to express the things that I needed to work through. And plus, I love it. There's something I had never, written quite like that before, but it had been such a huge part of my life since I was a young kid. So when I came to Chris and I said, let's do this, he was like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. And I think it tickles enough of all of our sensibilities that it works. Like,
yeah,
even if it's maybe not even necessarily any of our like dead set favorite genre every day, that we're kind of like going to and trying to, it definitely hits the notes of, the things that we love. So it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. And I think there's enough like overlap between like post-punk stuff, ambient stuff, instrumental stuff. I mean, all of those genres are just as much of a big influence on my life, right? So, it's one of those things. Like if you're going to be in a band, you have to be flexible as the songwriter, and and as hard as that was for me, when we first started, the way that we write now is different, and it just, I don't know, it just kind of feels better, like almost like the pressure is off a little bit. Like I don't have to put so much pressure on myself. We're all going to do a great job.
I think so many of those sensibilities from other genres that kind of get reflected and refracted in the genre of dream pop make it so easy to put you guys on a bill with anybody. I mean, you talked about being able to play with so many of these other local bands, and I think that genre helps really blend everything together so well.
Yeah, my initial answer to the question was going to be, Eric just said we were starting a dream pop band and we all signed on, but the more we talk about it, it really does feel like the center of that Venn diagram. It touches a little bit of everything, and so you can bring those influences in, and it just sort of works. It's the common ground.
We've heard a bit from Eric on the local scene. I'd love to hear a bit from the other band members about the influence and kind of interaction with the local scene and what you've kind of gleaned from that here in the Lehigh Valley.
So I was away from the local scene for a while because I was living in France for 6 years, so didn't really have a pulse of what was going on, and it really wasn't until joining this band that started to get back into it. I just remember we've talked about this legendary show, the Goth Prom, that we played at our first show. But I was so impressed with Leo, especially, who was spearheading the night. Leo Modeliz is his last name, I think. I've never said his last name out loud, so I hope I got that right, Leo.
And Wyatt too.
And Wyatt Davidic with him, and they were Service Dog at the time, now Felt Right. But just the way that they were spearheading the night and running the show, and Leo acting like a host and bringing everybody in and keeping everybody in line. Although there was some story from the rest of the night. But I loved seeing what was happening. That was just really sweet to see. And so that led to inviting them to cover for our cassette, and then working with Alex Luquette of Sailcloth, mostly because he's been working with my good friend Daniel Pashas, and so that got me connected with William H. Travis and asked him to do the other cover for the cassette, and Alex naturally found his way in between the two tracks. But yeah, there's a lot going on right now with the Slop Sync and things that they're setting up, and William H. Travis, such a community leader as well, setting up so many shows, and now Club Real World with Herbie and everything that he's setting up. It's fun to see this community that's really supporting one another. The Ice House as well. It was fun to play at the Ice House, and the committee that's running that is such an asset to the community. I'm really thankful that those things exist out there.
As we are starting to wrap up here, where can people find you?
You can find us in all the usual places, although we are most active on Instagram at Dear Misty, and you can find our music on Bandcamp, dearmisty.bandcamp.com, and we're on Spotify and wherever you stream your music. The album will be released on May 1st, and you'll be able to find it on all those platforms. Our album release show will be on May 2nd at National Socols. We'll be playing with our friends Joy Overdrive, and Felt Right will be coming back to play with us.
Awesome. If people are still interested in picking up the vinyl or the CDs or any of the physicals for the upcoming album, but they missed the initial campaign, how can they pick that up?
So we'll, as long as it gets pressed and shipped, we will have them at the release show, and we'll probably hope to get some in local stores as well, like Compact Disc Center, and Easton Record Exchange. But all of our merch is available on Bandcamp as well.
And if you live near us, I mean, we'll gladly drop it off. We accept all forms of payment.
And by we, he means I will drop it off.
I'll help.
And I'll mail you a postcard as well.
Well, dear Misty, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us. This
Thank
was
you.
great.
Dear Misty, thank you so much for coming onto the show. Their album release show will be at 7 p.m. on Saturday, May 2nd at National Sokals in Bethlehem. They will be joined that night by Joy Overdrive and Feltright. Admission to the show is $10 and is open to all ages. Copies of the album on CD and vinyl will be available for purchase, along with bags of a specialty coffee blend and t-shirts. We hope to see you there.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast. Don't forget to like the podcast, leave us a review, and follow us on both social media and streaming services at Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast.